Hi, Otto here for Bavarian Autosport. In today's video, we're going to show you how to replace a tie rod on a typical BMW. Now this vehicle is rack and pinion steering, which most BMWs are. So the tie rod replacement we're going to show you will apply to every BMW with rack and pinion steering for the most part. Vehicles with recirculating ball that have a center track rod will have a different connection on the inboard end of the tie rod. Otherwise, all of the rack and pinion ones will be pretty much the same as what we're going to show you. Now, on this particular vehicle, we also have a ripped boot, which may be why the tie rod end is worn out, allowing water and dirt to get into the joint and wear it out prematurely. So we'll be replacing the boot as well. Now on the play here, you can see we have a fair amount here, and it's all at the inboard joint here. We'll show you that more clearly when we get the boot off, the actual play in the joint. So what we'll be doing here is removing the wheel, removing the boot, disconnecting the outer end of the tie rod and the inner end to replace all of these parts. Now before we get to work, we're going to don our safe grip gloves, and then we'll get right to this. Okay, now we've got our wheel off and we're going to disconnect the outer joint here. We can do this a couple of different ways. If we're getting rid of the tie rod, as we are this one, the tie rod is worn out. In addition, the boot here is all torn up too. We can use the pickle fork style separator, which we just use a hammer and work into the joint to separate the joint, and due to the wedge, that'll pull the joint right apart. Now I'm also going to show you another tool that can be used even if you're going to throw the old piece away, but especially if you want to keep it, because it won't destroy the boot. We have this press here, which fits right over the end of the eyelet, and we thread the press piece down here onto the top of the end of the ball joint stud, and that'll put pressure on it to separate. So first thing we're going to do is take the nut off here. All right, now we're ready to pull off the nut on the top of the tie rod stud here. To prep that, be sure it's easy to come off, we'll use our mechanic all penetrant spray. Just give it a little shot right up on top. And now if that is especially tight, we'll let it sit for a while. This one should come right off. It didn't look too bad. And that will help keep it from seizing on the threads as it comes off. There we go. Take our nut off. There's the nut, and there's our stud for the ball joint in the tie rod end. Now, as noted, we're going to show you the non-invasive removing method that would not rip up the boot. Now again, this one is already damaged and needs to be replaced, so we might on this one actually use a pickle fork, but we want to show you the non-invasive way as well. So we have our press. The jaw on the press goes between the boot and the spindle eye here, and then the press end goes right up against the stud, and we just tighten it down on top of that. So let's see what we've got here. Get it in place, and we'll just start tightening the bolt. Try and get it where you can see here. Now we'll give this a fair amount of tension, and if it doesn't just pop free itself, we're going to use a method that we will often use sometimes when a press isn't available as well, to get the joint to separate. We'll just get a little more tension on this. There we go. And then what we'll do is shock the end with a hammer, and that should allow this to pop free with the tension on it. Okay, that's going to need a little bit more tension. Okay, now I've got a larger wrench here. I'm going to put it up so I can get more torque on it, get it over and on the bolt head, and we'll give this press a little bit more torque. As you can see, the brake backing plate is a little bit in the way, so we just have to work around that with the wrench. Okay, that's a fair amount more tension. Let's see what happens with the hammer now. There we go. Pops right free. Now, with this, we're ready to do the inner joint now. We have to remove the boot to access the inner joint. All right, now we're ready to remove our torn up boot. And one note, if you have a BMW or a Mini with the rack and pinion steering, and you have fluid leaking out of the boots at the tie rod end here, or there's a crack in the boot and there's fluid coming out, that does not mean you need a new boot. Now, if there's a crack in the boot, obviously you do need a new boot. But the problem is your rack internally, the seal, is leaking. So if that seal is leaking internally, that seal needs to be replaced, or the whole rack needs to be replaced or rebuilt. Replacing the boot will not stop the leakage. So to remove the boot, we have to disconnect these factory pinch clamps. Now there's a couple of ways you can do it. One, you can use some side cutters and just grab the clamp and twist and cut till it comes off, like that. Or you can actually take the end and pry it up. Now here we'll use the side cutters, or the end cutters, grab that end and just pull it off like that. And that removes our clamp as well. Now we'll just slide the boot pieces off the end. Notice this rubber keeper here for the outboard end. And pull this end off as well. Now, you can see this one's nice and dry, so we don't have any problems with our rack. All we have to do is take care of this joint here, which we have this play right here. So we'll be removing the whole tie rod, and we have a lock plate that we have to unbend this flat here, which keeps the inner end from being able to unscrew. So we'll bend this out, then we'll unthread the end, and we'll be ready to go. All right, now to bend this flap, what we'll do is take a screwdriver and just get under the flap so that we can get to the point where we can bend it up. All right, we're going to work from this side a little bit. And we just have to get this bent far enough so that the tie rod end will clear it. Now there is a flat here that this was bent on. There's another flat up top with the washer bent into that one as well. We'll need to bend that one out. Then we'll be ready to loosen the joint itself. All right, now on this joint, you can use a wrench on the two flats to loosen the joint from the rack. It just unthreads, but it does need to be a thin wrench to get on these flats. Different ends are different sizes. Now, as an alternative to that, there's this other tool we have here, which is universal and is basically a clamp that goes around the joint itself like this, and we'll tighten it in with the nuts. And then in the end, we'll use a 3/8 drive ratchet on the tool. We'll show you that in a second. Okay, now we have the nuts on. We're going to tighten these nuts to tighten the clamp. And we'll go fairly tight on this. Okay, now we'll use our 3/8 drive in the hole here and loosen our joint just as if we had a wrench on it. Come over here. There we go. Easy. Now once it's loose, you can just unthread it. This is probably going to hit, so we'll take the tool off and then we'll just unthread the end. Okay, now as we pull the tool off, I'll remind you that all of the tools and parts you see here are available in our online website at bavauto.com. And this is a universal one for all rack-style inboard joints on your tie rods. So we'll just set this down here. It's kind of stuck on the threads there. We'll take that apart later. And we'll continue to unthread this inner end. Okay, so what you have here, there's the threads. Here's the lock plate that we bent the flats on. You can see there's a little tab on the lock plate right here, and on the rack over here there's a slot. This tab fits into the slot, and that's what keeps this washer from moving once we have the flats bent over. And again, just to show you on this joint, here's the movement we have that requires replacement, in addition to this outer joint just having a beat up dust boot. Now this is still tight and serviceable, but not for long with this beat up boot. And again, our torn apart boot. So we're going to replace the boot and the complete tie rod.